get going, I guess. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Taylor if you are new here, and we're doing something a little bit different than I have done previously on my channel. I don't 100% know how it's gonna work, but it's been on my heart for a while to kind of do a video like this, and I saw Anna Sitar do like a sit down pretend I have a podcast video and was like, that might be the best way to kind of do this. I feel like if you've clicked on this video, you obviously know what it's about, but I feel like this topic has been very pivotal in my life. I feel like I very much have become a new person since kind of healing my body image and just having these new ways of thinking. And it really has shaped a lot of who I am today. And so I wanted to share kind of the story and hopefully be able to, I don't know, maybe inspire you that you are capable of doing this as well. I feel like not just women in America, but women universally have a lot of these specific boxes that we feel like that we're supposed to fit into. And I think body image is a big part of that. And so if you are struggling with that, you are 100% not alone, but you also don't have to be captive to that. You're not a slave to your insecurities. And so I was hoping that maybe sharing my story would also be able to encourage you that you're capable of this as well. I also have some notes on my computer so that I can kind of stay on track. So if you see me looking over here, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to not make this be a bajillion hours. But I feel like this transformation has been so pivotal in who I have become. I really latched on to the symbolism of butterflies. I have butterflies almost everywhere in my life, and you may recognize that. So I just feel like this is the phase of life that I'm in. This is where I am seeing so much growth in myself, growth into who I feel like I'm meant to be. And I am very much a person that values just deep connections, and I really hate small talk. I'm kind of bad at it. I just really value knowing people deeply, knowing what makes them tick, knowing why they are the way they are. And I want to foster a community, especially on my channel, but through my social medias, that can be that. I want to create a deepness. I think at the end of the day, we all want to be known, and I am not apart from that. I also want to be known, and I want people to know me, and I want to know you. I want to know the people who are watching this video. So I wanted to share this in just like an authentic peek into my life, a little bit deeper than just like a weekly vlog, a week of my life. Come on this trip with me. Like, I want you to know me as a deeper person as well. And so starting off this video, before we get into it, I would love for you to comment something down below so that I can get to know you as well, and we can start fostering a little bit of a community on this channel. I guess we'll just start with a little life update. We are sitting down. It is a rainy Thursday afternoon in September, coming at you from Columbus, Ohio. We are getting ready to go to my hometown this weekend. Kevin is running a relay marathon with our brother-in-law, and so I guess actually when this video comes out, that will already be out, so you can go ahead and click that video if you're interested in getting to see that. We're getting ready to go to Gatlinburg with Kevin's family. We're excited to have a little fall mountain moment. And so if you're interested in watching that, that'll actually come out next week. So you can make sure you subscribe to be updated on that. Not a whole lot other than that going on at the moment. So I wrote up a couple other things that I just really want to preface this video with. First, like I said, I feel like this transformation has just like completely revolutionized who I am. And how I live my life, how I see things, the lens which I view life through. And so I really wanted to share that with you. But my ultimate goal is just to let others know that they have the power to heal themselves as well, that they have the power to say, this way that I feel about myself does not define me, and it does not mean that I have to feel this way about myself for the rest of my life. And so I am just really hoping that even if just one person is inspired by this, feels like they can relate and that they're not alone in these feelings, then my job in this will have been done. But that being said, all of the things that I'm about to say are my own thoughts and opinions. You don't have to resonate with them. You don't have to agree with them. And that is okay. I very much believe that we're all just doing the best that we can with the information that we have, and that does not have to look the same from person to person. And so if there are things that you resonate with, things you disagree with, feel free to drop those things in the comments. It would be great to hear what you liked, what you didn't like, what you feel like we're going through the same things, what you don't agree with what I said at all. But also recognize that as you comment those things, I also have the freedom to not engage in those conversations. This is my channel. If you don't like it, I'll be sad to see you go, but also will understand if that needs to happen. So I think we have to start all the way at the very beginning of my story to really get the full picture of healing my body image. And so I had always kind of been a skinny girl. I had a very fast metabolism growing up. I did a lot of dance. I was an active child, you could say. And that kind of was a big part of my identity growing up. I feel like I kind of grew up in a very like anti-fat environment, truthfully. I don't really have better words to put that into than just the idea that if you were fat, you weren't really worthy in society. You should always be striving to be skinny, whether that means you need to be starving yourself, whether that means you need to skip foods, eat certain foods, count your calories, anything like that. And until my sophomore into junior year of high school, I was conventionally skinny. And I just felt good about myself. Obviously I had insecurities, but not really about the way that my body looked. And after a really bad breakup in high school, my mental and emotional well-being was probably the worst that it's ever been in my entire life. So that was like 2012, to give you an idea of where we are now. So I went through a really big breakup. It was a very emotionally abusive situation. It just was not good as a whole. It led to some sexual abuse, just things that really just completely altered the way that I viewed myself. I just didn't think that I really had any worth in myself. I didn't really know who I was anymore. And at 16, that is a very brutal place to be. And so during that time, I really was turning to food for comfort. And also that was at a time in my life where I was getting on birth control just because my period was so irregular. I was having a lot of different like health problems surrounding that. And so we got on birth control, but unfortunately the birth control that I was put on, they didn't know that it would have adverse side effects for type 1 diabetics, which I am. And it caused me to gain like 30 pounds in the span of like a month, maybe 2 months, like very, very fast. And so that was very difficult, as you can imagine. Not only was I existing as somebody who just felt so worthless emotionally, but I had also lost my like skinny identity and just felt very worthless in my physical appearance as well as in my emotional state, and it is who I was at that point. And high schoolers are just so mean. And there was lots of rumors that I was pregnant. There was just lots of unkind things going on at a time where I went from buying like size 2-4 homecoming dresses to like size 11 to 13 homecoming dresses, and it was just rough, as you can imagine. And so after that, my weight fluctuated a ton between high school, going into college, getting the freshman 15 and learning how to eat on my own, and just I gained a lot of weight, and you could really see it, especially in my face. My face got just like crazy, and that's how you could tell that it was also hormonal weight gain, not just like emotional. I was eating too much kind of. And so going into my senior year of college, so that would have been like 2017, I went on kind of this like retreat summer leadership program kind of thing with the church group that I was involved in. And at that point, I felt like I learned a lot of things. My parents had just gotten divorced and was going through processing a lot of that and healing from a lot of that. And I feel like during that summer, it was very pivotal in just doing a lot of emotional healing. And as I feel like I was doing that healing, I definitely started to see some weight come off. I probably lost 10 to 15 pounds, honestly, through that summer into the beginning of my senior year of college. I really believe that the body remembers your trauma, and when you are in a state of just like constant fighting, fight or flight kind of body state, your body is going to hold on to whatever it can to feel safe. And I think for me, that was really like my physical weight. As I was gaining weight, my body was holding on to it as like a safety precaution, I feel like. And so as I started to feel more and more safe, I wasn't constantly in that fight or flight state anymore. I feel like my body was like, okay, we can start to shed this weight a little bit. I met Kevin around that same time, who is my husband, if you do not know. And then I moved to Georgia to start chiropractic school. I started to learn a lot more about health through going through chiropractic school and learned a lot more about myself. I got involved in a community that was really great. I did a lot of healing. I continued to learn more about myself and about my beliefs and about what I valued, how I wanted to move forward in my life. And I continued to lose weight, honestly, without trying at all. I wasn't really exercising. I didn't really change the way that I was eating that much. I just started to see it come off. And I really believe, one, that had to do with when I went to chiropractic school, I learned how bad hormonal birth control can be for your life and for your health in general. And so I got off the hormonal birth control that I was taking. I figured having the adverse side effects that I was having before I got on it was worth not putting these toxins into my body. And I wasn't having sex anyway, so why was I on birth control? When I got off birth control, that is really when the weight started peeling off. So that's another story in itself. But so we move on to really the turning point in this story for me. I had done a lot of emotional healing, but still was very hard on myself, hard on my body, very not nice to myself, just did not think I had a good body image, always was striving to be skinnier, but not really doing anything about it, that kind of thing. And so the turning point in the story is we were on our honeymoon so we got married in June of 2020, and that definitely took a toll on our plans. And so we did not get to do our actual honeymoon trip that we had planned until our 1 year anniversary. And so we are 1 year post marriage at this point. It's June of 2021. We did a whole West Coast trip. We flew into Portland, went to Seattle, flew to San Francisco, drove down the Pacific Coast Highway, went to LA. It was the best time. But we were in Portland, so our very first stop on this whole trip. And I think just were out for ice cream or something. And I was just feeling the travel bloats. I was not feeling good about myself. I was feeling very self-conscious in what I was wearing. And I think I just said something to the effect of oh, I'm so fat. And I think Kevin had just had the buildup from this. But he said to me no, you're not. Stop talking about yourself like that. And kind of yelled at me. We got in this whole spat on the side of the road outside of this ice cream shop. And I ended up storming down the street. I can't be around you if you're going to talk to me like this kind of thing. Really recognizing that you have some validity in what you're saying. And that was the first time that I woke up and I was okay, the way that I'm talking to myself is not just affecting me, but it's starting to affect my marriage. It's starting to affect the way that people can relate to me. And I wasn't gonna let the way I talk to myself be detrimental to my marriage, because I very much believe that my marriage was a very God-given thing. Just the way that it worked out, there's honestly no other explanation for it, I feel like. So I knew that something had to change, but I wasn't sure how to do that, because the way that I was living was the only way that I knew. That's all that had been modeled to me. Nobody else had necessarily taught me a different way to live. So I didn't know what to do. And I very much feel like we were walking through Powell's Books in Portland, Oregon, and I just felt like this book kind of just jumped off the shelves at me. I really can't even explain why it was in the location that it was, but I found the book for me. It's this book, and I'm going to read a little bit from it as we go, but it's called Breaking Free from Body Shame by Jess Connolly. I also found the book Pure by Linda K. Klein, but that will be a whole other story. If you're interested in what I'm talking about, leave me a comment and we'll see if we can do another one of these. But I devoured this book in hours. I think we took a 3-hour drive to Seattle, and then there was an hour and a half flight from Seattle to San Francisco. And by the end of that, I had finished this book. And it was very revolutionary for me, honestly. So the book opens by saying, if God took on a body to be with us, then our search for him should, in part, be found in and through our bodies. And that's just not something I feel like I ever heard from the church. We are very much taught to hide our bodies, that feminine beauty should not be on display necessarily, that we need to be covered up and not use our bodies as a weapon, and kind of just don't let your body be a threat to anybody. Yeah. So that being said, another quote in this book is that the truest thing about you is that you are made and loved by God. And the truest thing about God is that he cannot make bad things. And if you believe that to be true, why, as a church, are we weaponizing people's bodies? Anyway, reading this book, there were so many different just ways of thinking that this book brought about that I just had never really considered before. And it was almost the type of thing of like, in my deepest heart, I knew that these things were true, but to finally have somebody else put them into words, and then I could be like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Why didn't I think of that originally? And then to have my husband be like, yeah, why didn't you think that way in the first place? It just was very eye-opening to me, and I think that just really set the ball rolling. And then I couldn't devour enough content to really start rethinking the way that I spoke to myself, the way that I talked to myself about my body. As someone who went from being very conventionally skinny to someone who was very uncomfortable in the skin that she was living in, I had a very hard time accepting body positivity as a concept. And that's something that this book kind of talked about. There was just the idea between body positivity versus a term called body neutrality. And it very much recognized that while the messaging of all bodies are good bodies is a true message, not everyone is going to be able to take that as it is. And especially for people with body dysmorphia, which I very much felt like I had, like I still do. There's still times where I will see somebody's body and be like, Kevin, is that what my body looks like? Or is it more like this? Like I just cannot get a true picture of what my body looks like, which is a problem that I'm working on. But in this book, there's just the idea that, here, I wrote this on my notes. In the words of Jess, it creates a space for our hearts to process the pain and disappointment that we feel while still throwing off the shame of the overly negative perspectives that we carry. And so it just allows you to say, my body is the body that I have. And while we're working towards wanting to have a good body, that's the least important thing about you. You don't have to focus on that. And I think that's another thing that this book really helped me see, is that my body is one of the least important things, least interesting things about me. Like, I am smart. I am clever. I'm creative. I'm a good dancer. I have the desire to inspire people. I am very loyal. I love really hard. I wrote, I have a specific purpose that God has created for my life, and it is my honor to spend each day trying to follow what that calling is. And I feel like that needs to be like my new life motto, because I truly believe it. Like, deep down, I believe that every person is created with a purpose. And what a joy it is just to be able to be searching for what that could be each and every day. And that's way more interesting than the way that my body looks. So another thing that I feel like this book helped me realize, along with being in chiropractic school, is that I needed to shift my mindset from wanting to be skinny to wanting to be healthy. And that is definitely not something that I had ever considered. And so I shifted from, well, one, I started actually like working out because I saw the way that like my anxiety decreased. I felt better. I had less brain fog when I was moving my body every day. And it wasn't just for the purpose of being skinny, which is not something that I had ever experienced before. Working out was so that you could look good. And so I learned about a set weight versus your ideal weight. So your set weight is kind of the idea that in your genetics, you kind of have a preset weight that your body is going to default back to if you're not working overly hard to make it less or eating so much that it's going to push it to be more. And so, or having your hormones be off so it messes everything up. And so just the idea that your body, you kind of have this like predetermined thing that like if you don't do any work, it's going to be between this little range. And that was very revolutionary to think like, if you just you exist the way you exist, you're designed in a certain way, that's not really on you. And then I started focusing on how I felt versus, and what I saw in the mirror versus checking my weight on the scale. I could not tell you the last time I actually like weighed myself, because at the end of the day, I just don't think that your weight is a very correct picture of what is actually going on in your body. It's not a good picture of health necessarily. It doesn't take into account your muscle mass versus your fat. It doesn't account for the fact that if you are building muscle, you're going to be gaining weight, even if you're looking nice and snatched. Like it just, and also like as females, our weight is constantly fluctuating depending on where we are in our cycle. And so just because you weighed yourself on a random Tuesday doesn't mean that's like an actual picture or like a correct representation of your body. And so like, why are we really listening to that? I don't know. But there are so many better pictures of what your health is than just your weight. And so that was a really big mindset shift for me. But ultimately, this book, the like subtitle is Dare to Reclaim What God Has Named Good. And so it is inherently a Christian book. I'm not going to lie to you in that. But because of that, it helped me realize that so much of the core of my issues came from what I was taught in the church and through my like spiritual beliefs, I guess. And that was a whole nother thing that I had to figure out on how to tackle. Like that no longer was just about like me, myself, my physical body, but it brought in the whole like emotional, spiritual aspect of it. It brought in my values, my core beliefs, that kind of thing. And this is where I really feel like the transformation started to happen for me personally. Mainstream Christianity is very terrified of freedom in our bodies. That is just not something that we are ever really taught. Countless versions through centuries of the church and corrupt individuals being in charge and patriarchy and just lots of different reasons have been twisted. The verses have been twisted. I personally feel like to oppress women, to take their power away, to make them insecure in their bodies. Take that with what you will. But what was very eye-opening to me in this element, not only was just lessons from this book, but Kevin actually brought to me this article that really, really changed the way that I thought about my body. And so I'm going to read it to you. Not the whole article, but a good bit of it. It is called The God-Honoring Freedom of the Bikini. Is wearing a bikini a sin? Buckle in. This is where it gets good. Bikini historians believed Louis Rayard named his invention after the Bikini Islands, where the atomic bombs were tested. Rayard apparently, and rightfully, guessed his invention could rattle the world off its foundations a la the atomic bomb, and I believe that bikinis have, though not for the reasons that many think. Obviously, the bikini has blessed male beachgoers, but the bikini has also been a blessing to women, never more so than when worn by women of all body types and stripes. Although some bikini historians claim that Rayard didn't invent the bikini, as evidence of bikinis exist from ancient Rome and Minoa, still the female figure has spent much of human history either shrouded away or pushed and pulled, wrapped and floofed in an attempt to make our bodies behave and conform. But this all changed with the bikini. With its invention, women were given the freedom to be women, to let our actual female shapes be seen as they are, nearly, to harken back to Eden, to a time where we could be naked and unashamed. When we bound into the waves, or lie under the sun's hot rays, or jump into the blue depths in bikinis, we declare our bodies to be enough, just as they are. And whether our bodies are taut or flabby, whether they're prime or well past it, standing confidently in a bikini declares our God-crafted bodies as beautiful and good. And in turn, we proclaim that others' women's bodies are also good. When we can proclaim this, in a world that has so long sought to shame women and our bodies, we worship God with our physicality, not only because it's a physical expression of the vulnerability and humility and grace we're called to share, but because when more of our skin tingles at the touch of the stinging salt or crisp chlorine or warms under the sun's baking rays, our bodies glory in God's creation in ways they normally don't and historically could not. So really, the bikini is both worship and witness in one itsy-bitsy teeny-weeny package, rattling the world as it both glories in God's goodness and reveals it. I'll have that link, that article linked down below if you're interested in having it yourself. Yeah, I really feel like hearing those words were kind of the final nail in the coffin of my insecurity. It was the first time that I was really surrounded by evidence and felt God telling me that I was created in his image and I could worship him with my body as well as with my actions. I was reminded that I am created in God's image. I was created with beauty. I was created to be alluring. I was created to be desirable. And that's not something that I have to hide away. Something that the Breaking Free from Body Shame book really said to me, and not just to me, it physically says it, but talks about the idea that if we are created in Christ's image, what do we have to be afraid of? Another quote that was really eye-opening for me is, it says, "When did we stop trusting the Holy Spirit to communicate appropriate boundaries through our freedom in Christ? Have we traded the message of freedom for even more bondage because we're scared to let people navigate the complex waters of liberty in their own flesh?" And I think that that is overwhelmingly true. If the Holy Spirit is telling me that I have the freedom to show my body however I want, that doesn't mean he's going to be telling everybody that, and I recognize that. But if I feel like that is my message of freedom, why can't I walk in that? Why has there just been this blanketed statement that has weaponized the human body? And I think when I realized that, that's what really did it in for me. I very much believe that if I feel strongly about doing something and I'm good with it, if I feel that it's what God's calling me to and he's good with it, and to a lesser extent, my husband's okay with it, why let anybody else's beliefs what they have to say stand in the way with that. Because had I not gone through this transformation, I wouldn't be so alive with the freedom that I am right now, and so on fire to let other people know that they can also walk in freedom. And again, you don't have to agree with what I have to say, but it has brought me even closer to God than I could have ever imagined. And I feel like I can walk with freedom and joy and just things that I can only attribute to walking with the Holy Spirit, I guess. So that doesn't have to be what your freedom looks like, but it is what mine looks like. And if that is something that you're feeling called to, I encourage you to walk in it as well, because we are created in God's image, and being able to show that off only sheds light on our Creator. And I think that's really beautiful. Like I said, I recognize that my body shame issues stemmed from weight gain, and a poor body image, and how I talk to myself is kind of what brought all of this to light. But it also came from a place of being told that my body was a weapon. And this may have been your experience. You may have only experienced a little bit of my story. You may have you don't resonate with this at all. But regardless of how you're feeling, you're able to retrain the way that you think. You are able to heal your body image and heal any other things that you feel like are holding you back. And that can help you experience your own sense of freedom. And that was my ultimate goal of today, is just to be able to show you I have found freedom in this. I healed my body image. I have started to heal some of just the things that I feel like were weaponized against me, and that you are also able to do that. I believe that it is God's desire for me to love what He made, glorify Him with it, and experience restoration and healing and just hope in my body that I never knew before I was 25. Now, I do not think that I have this super rock star or supermodel body. That is not what I'm trying to get at, so I really hope that that is not what you heard today, because I still have lots of insecurities. I do not think my body is perfect. I wish it was more toned. I wish that I had the perfect little ski slope nose. I wish that my thighs were smaller. There are lots of things that I still have insecurities about, and that doesn't go away just because you've started to heal your body image. I hope that maybe one day it will, but that has not been my experience yet. But all of those things matter just so much less than they used to, as I have just been able to grow in loving me for the way that I am, and being able to just like freely express that. The bad starts to matter less, I guess. So, all of that to say, I hope that this did something for you. If it didn't, I'm sorry, but maybe please don't tell me, because I would be sad. If it did do something for you, go ahead and leave a comment down below. I would love to interact with any of you that feel like this is something that you resonate with. I would love to open up a dialogue. I'd love to have conversations. You can comment down below. You can find me at my Instagram and send me a DM. You can email me. My email is in the description box below. I just would love to build community with you over this. I would love to hear what you have to say. And again, I would love just to get to know you. So give me a comment down below. That helps me get to know you a little bit better. If you liked this little fake podcast thing that I've got going on, feel free to let me know, and I can create more things like this because, like I said, I just love little deep talks. I love to share where I came from and my motivations and what I love. I want to be known, and I think you do too. And so I would love to just engage more in this space. If you liked what you saw today, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe and turn on post notifications so that you're notified as I post more things. Thanks for this little cozy hangout and for getting to this point in the video. I love you a lot. I guess we'll talk next time.